Next on the news, the city of El Paso, Texas is done for now with busing migrants to New York and Chicago. So what's the reason for the decision? Also, a diocese in New Jersey goes green to protect God's creation, how they're acting on the words of Pope Francis. And
so we're all invisible angels.
The group of women called Yarns of Love, who have been pulling together to help so many members of their community. Plus, you'll have another chance to see the documentary about Mother Teresa when it's coming back to the silver screen. I'm Christine Persichetti. This special edition of Currents News starts right now. The last buses have rolled out. El Paso no longer sending migrants to New York and Chicago because of changes to immigration policy. Many of the migrants on those buses were from Venezuela, but now, because of the Biden administration's use of Title 42 and other policy adjustments, the migrants are in limbo, and many are still far from the U.S. border, even after giving up everything they had.
Alahaides Moray says she's running out of options. When she migrated from Venezuela to Colombia 4 years ago, she thought she could find a new life here. And for a while, it seemed to work. But now, prices keep rising for this mother of three. And Moray says she had to take her children out of school last month because she could no longer afford their meals. Like tens of thousands of Venezuelan migrants this summer, she decided she would try to reach the United States and started planning a journey that would have taken her from Colombia to Panama, Central America, Mexico, up to the U.S. southern border. Her children made drawings for their grandmother in preparation for the upcoming departure. They were due to travel this week, but a new policy from the Biden administration halted their plan. Last Wednesday, the White House launched a new plan to welcome some Venezuelans who fly into the United States with the help of a sponsor and officially turn away those who attempt to enter without one. While up to 24,000 will be allowed to resettle in the U.S. if they qualify for temporary protected status, anyone entering the country without authorization will be eligible for deportation. In this Twitter video from the Colombian border, U.S. Ambassador James Story warns Venezuelan migrants not to travel on their own and to follow the protocols to obtain the protected status. But Moray says she could never afford the paperwork and air ticket to relocate from Colombia to the U.S. We can't go back to Venezuela because there's nothing for us there, she says, no jobs. We don't even have a home there anymore. But Colombia is more expensive every day, and now we don't know what to do. It's a familiar story in 2022. The world's poorest priced out by a global cost of living crisis that includes soaring food prices. At this aid clinic in central Bogota, most of these migrants share the same sense of helplessness and want to go up north.
There's a major sense of urgency. People need money tomorrow to put food on the table for their families tomorrow. They need to pay their electricity bills tomorrow. They need to have a place to stay tomorrow night for their families. And again, with the rising prices, people are not able to make it work.
Moray's situation is far from unique, with inflation still on the rise in Colombia. Experts believe the new U.S. policy at the southern border may reduce the flow of migrants, but only for a limited amount of time. The city of El Paso, Texas, has halted the busing of migrants to New York and Chicago. City officials cited that new Biden administration policy meant to deter Venezuelan migrants from illegally crossing the southern border. Since the busing effort began in August, El Paso has sent more than 10,000 migrants to New York and around 3,200 to Chicago. New York City's tent shelter on Randall's Island is off to a slow start. More than 20,000 migrants have arrived in recent months, but only a few people are staying at the controversial facility. And by a few, reports say only 5 men have checked in so far. It's set up to accommodate 500 single men arriving without families. The camp was initially supposed to be a temporary facility, but that was wheeled back too. The mayor saying there will be no limit on how long migrants can stay there. The tent city was built to alleviate pressure on the city's homeless shelter system, which in recent months has been hitting new records. New York's right to shelter law now being forced to accommodate a mass migration of asylum seekers and the thousands living on city streets. And now homeless residents at a shelter just yards away are complaining that their living conditions don't match up to the migrants. We saw officials bring reporters on a tour through the tent city on Tuesday, showcasing laundry rooms, a dining hall, and recreation spaces with flat-screen TVs and an Xbox. Meantime, at the homeless shelter, the elevators seldom work, and just last year, a person was trapped in one for 4 nights before firefighters got him out. Mayor Eric Adams addressed their concerns.
This is not about comparing those who need assistance and care from the city. We're not doing that. And we're not going to, you speak to some that will look at who's there in the shelter on Randall's Island and say, well, why am I not on Randall's Island surrounded by water? There's always going to be reasons that people are going to feel as though someone else is getting something better than them. My job is to make sure everyone gets a place to sleep that's safe, 3 meals a day, and the support that they need so they can cycle out of being in the shelter. And that's what we're doing.
The mayor said he has visited the homeless shelter and they are sending workers to fix it. The Supreme Court has refused to block the rollout of the Biden administration's student debt relief plan. The program can move forward, at least for now. Loan forgiveness is scheduled to begin as early as Sunday. Within hours of the Supreme Court action, a lawsuit brought by 6 GOP-led states was also tossed out by a federal district court in Missouri. The program could give you thousands of dollars in federal student loan relief. Ivan Rodriguez is in Washington with details on who qualifies, how to apply, and what this might mean for you.
President Joe Biden touting the formal launch of the application process for the administration's student loan forgiveness plan on Monday.
If you have federal student debt, please visit studentaid.gov.
Borrowers with federally held student loans are now eligible to apply for up to $10,000 in debt cancellation if they make less than $125,000 per year, and as much as $20,000 if they were also Pell Grant recipients. Relief is also available for graduate students and parents who borrowed Federal Plus loans if the borrower meets the income requirements.
In total, more than 40 million Americans can stand to benefit from this relief.
The Department of Education says it will email at least 8 million borrowers who will be considered for debt relief but don't need to apply because the department already has their income information. This phase of the administration's debt cancellation program is building onto a pandemic-era pause in federal student loan repayment that is set to restart in January.
The Department of Education has told us that if you apply for debt cancellation by the middle of November, you'll be able to get your student debt canceled before payments restart.
Advocates say this is an important move toward easing the financial burden of higher education on Americans.
We look at this application as the first step towards not only unleashing the full potential of borrowers and students and parents, but of the entire economy.
Borrowers looking for relief have until December 31st, 2023 to apply. Ivan Rodriguez, Currents News.
According to the Department of Education, you can only receive a refund on student loan payments made between March 13th, 2020 and December 31st, 2022. Some students in the Diocese of Brooklyn are getting financial relief thanks to Futures in Education. The organization, which helps to pay the tuition for some 3,000 students across Brooklyn and Queens, held their annual Futures in Education Scholarship Dinner Tuesday night.
We have another $6,000 out there.
And it was a successful night. Before plates even hit the tables, the organization had hit half of its goal. Patrons were urged to either pull out their checkbooks and donate directly, or they could win some fun prizes in a silent auction. But Monsignor Jamie Gigantiello, the Vicar for Development, says the night is about more than just money.
Tonight's a wonderful night because people want to come together again. And I have to say that this event is probably the highlight of so many people's lives. They come here and they say, wow, this is the best event ever. We have so much fun, and yet we're doing good.
Futures was able to beat its 2021 total of $2.1 million. For more information on Futures in Education, including how to donate or even apply for a scholarship for a child, just go to futuresineducation.org. The tablet is also helping students, specifically high school juniors and seniors. In this week's paper is a special college section. It details some of the major Catholic institutions of higher learning in New York State, giving you vital information from their enrollment numbers to their educational programs and, of course, info on open houses and how to apply. To get all that information, just pick up a copy of this week's paper at your local church. For all future papers, you can get them sent straight to you by subscribing at thetablet.org. The Diocese of Metuchen is caring for God's creation by moving toward a greener future. Immaculata High School in Somerville, New Jersey is the first school in the diocese to go solar, a move officials say was inspired by Pope Francis himself. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has more.
Immaculata High School's colors are blue and white, and now green. The bell and the rest of the electric in the school is powered by the sun.
If you see right there, it says Solar 30.
The installation of 1,228 solar panels on its roof was just completed, a project 3 years in the making, and a decision Jake Morio, the school's director of facilities, says was made with faith in mind.
Part of being a Catholic, we're told that we need to be good stewards, and it's important that, I pass along not only the school, but also the earth, in better shape than maybe we received it.
The school is a pioneer in the Diocese of Metuchen, but it's following the lead of Pope Francis, who in his 2015 encyclical Laudato Si, meaning care for our common home, emphasized the role Catholics play in maintaining the health of our earth.
I think the solar panels are having a big influence on
students in Immaculata's Hope, or Help Our Planet Earth Club, say they're proud of this step.
Just seeing the solar panels has given everybody a little bit more awareness of our carbon footprint and what we can do.
So far, students have only been able to see the solar panels from pictures taken by a drone.
Are you ready? Come on up.
I got to do it the old-fashioned way.
Oh, wow.
Monsignor Joseph Solano, the Episcopal Vicar for the Diocese of Metuchen, says this is living by example.
Both from the perspective of Laudato Si and something of the theological orientation that the Holy Father was clearly giving us, but also on a practical level for a more cost-effective use of energy.
And not only are the solar panels good for the environment, they're good for the school. Immaculata is going to be saving 40 to 60% of its yearly energy costs.
We are also taking steps toward being good stewards of how we provide energy.
This is just the beginning for the Diocese of Metuchen's environmental efforts. The conversion to renewable energy sources is also happening at other schools and parishes and the diocesan offices. In Somerville, New Jersey, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens already has a green energy initiative in the Diocese of Brooklyn. In response to the Pope's environmental concerns, CCBQ formed Laudato Si Corporation. It generates renewable energy with arrays of solar panels mounted on the rooftops of residential buildings across the diocese. The Bishop Thomas V. Daly residence in Prospect Heights was the first building to get the panels in June of 2021. There's a lot more news headed your way. Their hands do all the work, but the work comes from their hearts. We'll introduce you to Yarns of Love. Plus, they have the playbook. Now the ball is in the hands of diocesan leaders who are involved in the Eucharistic revival. And Pope Francis's next trip will mix business with pleasure. Whose party he's going to? That's coming up.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
Front post, back post.
They are women who have become a tight-knit group by practicing their craft and their faith at the same time. Yarns of Love knits and crochets with the hopes of bringing others a little warmth and comfort. Every year, they give away hundreds of handmade items. They've helped new parents, people battling cancer, and the elderly. And though they don't do it for a thank you, they have gotten something in return. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story from Gerritsen Beach.
1, 2, 3.
Their patterns are complicated.
Now I have to increase.
But their purpose is simple.
This is really a gift of love.
This group of women, known as Yarns of Love, has knitted, crocheted, and given away thousands of items to newly baptized babies, people living out their last years in nursing homes.
This is for the coat drive.
And everyone in between. They get together a few times a month in the basement of Resurrection Church in Gerritsen Beach. Phyllis Adali founded the group 11 years ago.
We started as a learning group. You know, I offered to teach, to get women together to make friends.
Though the ladies have been making things together for over a decade,
Where would I go, Gail?
Right there.
Gail Cassidy's crochet hook has a few more miles on it.
Well, I started when I was 12. My grandmother taught me how to knit. And ever since then, it's just been something I love to do and love to give to people and keeps my fingers busy and out of trouble.
Each woman brings her own skill to the table. Angela tried to teach me. It's not as hard as it looks.
Look at
it's
you.
harder.
Look at you. Go. Okay.
And with their craft comes community and an outreach Father William With says the church is grateful for.
They make things to extend their ministry and the love of God to others.
They're with each other through thick and thin, and when things unravel, they support each other.
I don't think I would have felt as comfortable in the neighborhood as I do now without all these ladies.
God bless you, Yarns of Love.
And they don't do it for a thank you.
They don't know who's in the group. There's no face. So we're all invisible angels.
When Yarns of Love get together, even if their products aren't finished or imperfect, they make something beautiful. In Gerritsen Beach, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
If you're interested in joining Yarns of Love, you can call the Resurrection Church Rectory at 718-743-7234. A nationwide campaign is now giving leaders a guide on how to bring the faithful closer to Christ through the Eucharist. The team organizing the Eucharistic revival is releasing a playbook, which is meant to assist diocesan leaders, priests, and school administrators in coming up with plans to bring excitement about the Eucharist in their communities. The book gives practical suggestions for fostering personal encounters with Christ in the Eucharist, including Eucharistic processions, retreats, and evenings of adoration. It also advises parishes to offer formation programs to teach Catholics about the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. And it's much needed. An alarming 2019 Pew Research study found 69% of Catholics do not believe the bread and wine become Christ's body and blood during Mass, a core belief of our faith. It was because of that study that in 2021, the bishops called for a multi-year national Eucharistic revival campaign in order to restore and promote an understanding of the Eucharist. The initiative will culminate in a National Eucharistic Congress in 2024. To learn more about the campaign and how to take part, just go to eucharisticrevival.org. Next month, Pope Francis will be off on another trip, this time to a city in northern Italy. But the Holy Father will be visiting family this time. As Justin McClellan reports, Francis will be spending some time with his cousin.
Pope Francis will travel to Asti in northern Italy to celebrate his cousin's 90th birthday. The Vatican press office announced that the Pope will have a private visit with his relatives and the next day will celebrate Mass in the diocese which his parents belonged to before migrating to Argentina in 1929. It's not the first time he will visit his Italian relatives since becoming Pope. In 2015, he celebrated Mass with family members when he visited the city of Turin, where his paternal grandfather was born in 1907 and who Pope Francis credits for instilling in him a hate for war.
L'odio, la rabbia alla guerra, io l'ho imparato del mio nonno, che aveva fatto il Piave nel 14. E lui mi ha trasmesso questa rabbia alla guerra, perché mi raccontai le sofferenze di una guerra. E questo non si impara nei libri né altri, si impara così, trasmettendola dai nonni ai nipoti. E questo è insostituibile.
According to the group of Jesuits that hosted him, the Pope would visit his family each time he came to Italy as a cardinal.
That was Justin McClellan reporting. The Diocese of Asti says it's sent several invitations to the Holy Father and has been waiting about 10 years for a visit from the Pope. Still to come on Currents News, they are praying together and playing cricket together. How seminarians in Rome are using the sport as part of their formation. And maybe you missed it the first time around, but now the documentary about Mother Teresa is coming back to theaters. Details on when you can see it next. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. They have dedicated their lives to God and church, but now seminarians in Rome are making the St. Peter's Cricket Club part of their formation. Father Eamon O'Higgins, who manages the club, says cricket is a little piece of home for many Australian, Sri Lankan, Indian, and Pakistani seminarians and priests living in Rome. They say the basic idea is also to give a positive image of the priesthood. Mother Teresa is returning to the silver screen by popular demand.
She was a small, tiny, bent woman, but she had a commanding presence. You could feel...
Mother Teresa, No Greater Love is a Knights of Columbus documentary which features some big voices in the Catholic Church speaking about the spiritual icon and how her work serving the poor continues today. The film was only in theaters for 2 days in the beginning of October, but it managed to finish second in the box office in America that week, earning more than $1.2 million. Now it's going to return to theaters around the country in early November, as well as debuting in the United Kingdom, Canada, and Brazil. To find a showing near you, just go to motherteresamovie.com. Again, the documentary will only be in theaters on November 2nd and 3rd, so you better get your tickets soon. And that is this special edition of Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Before we leave, in honor of the Eucharistic Revival campaign happening in the U.S. and Mother Teresa's return to the big screen, we thought we'd show you this special clip from the documentary highlighting the Eucharistic life of the saint. Hope to see you again next time.
Mother would say that Jesus in the poor and Jesus in the Eucharist is the same. And she said, if we lose the touch with the Eucharist, we will lose the touch with the poorest of the poor.
Mi toccava sempre quello che lei diceva alle sue sorelle, che non possono andare a servire ai poveri se prima hanno adorato il Signore, perché senza questo filo sono operatori sanitari.
Every person is Christ for me, and that's why, since there is only one Jesus, then that person is only one person for me at that moment. It is that continual contact with Christ in His poor, like we have during Mass and in the Blessed Sacrament.
Mother taught us how to connect Jesus in the Eucharist and Jesus in the poor. So for me it is very inspiring and touching to touch the body of Jesus in the poor